I'm Huon Hooke, and this is The Real Review. The wine we're tasting today is Henschke Mount Edelstone Vineyard Shiraz 2015 from the Eden Valley. The backstory to Mount Edelstone is a very interesting story because it wasn't always a Henschke vineyard. Mount Edelstone was planted in 1912 by Ronald Angus. The Angus family are still very prominent in the Eden Valley, and in fact the earliest Angus gave his name to the town of Anguston, which of course is the major town in the Eden Valley region. The Henschkes bought it a long time later. It's one of the great vineyards of the Eden Valley, second only in the Henschke pantheon to Hill of Grace, of course, and a really, really outstanding wine in its own right. I think it ages beautifully and it epitomizes the taste of Eden Valley Shiraz just as well as Hill of Grace does. This particular vineyard had been producing grapes for a long time before Cyril Henschke came along, and Cyril was the father of the current winemaker Stephen Henschke. Cyril made the first single vineyard Hill of Grace wine in 1958, but the Mount Edelstone was even earlier than that. 1952 was the very first Mount Edelstone single vineyard Shiraz. And back in those days, it wasn't a common thing to do. It was very rare indeed that people made single vineyard wines from this vineyard, that vineyard, and the other vineyard, and put the name of the vineyard on the label. Very, very unusual. Cyril Henschke was quite a pioneer. He was a visionary. You look at the beautiful old eucalypt trees that are dotted around the countryside, and you think, wow, this is a place with a particular feel to it, a real atmosphere to it, real charisma. Like all Henschke vineyards, it's biodynamically farmed, and great care is taken by Stephen's wife, Prue Henschke, who is in charge of the viticulture. She is about as fastidious as a viticulturist could be. Pick it up and have a look at the colour, and it's not a really, really dark colour. It's got good depth of colour, very good hue, still got a tinge of purple, 5 years old, 5.5 years old. But when you put it to your nose, that's when the fireworks happens. It really is an astonishing bouquet. And I'm just as impressed by this wine as I was when I tasted Hill of Grace, which has a similar suite of aromatics on the nose to this one. What is there? There's definitely crushed raspberries, which is to me a real Eden Valley trait. But even more than that, there's all these dried herb aromas. Stephen Henschke likes to talk about thyme, mace, oregano, sage. Sage especially, I think, is a characteristic that these wines have. They are not like Shirazes from anywhere else in Australia or the world probably that I know of, but there is built into that suite of aromas I've just described is a spiciness that cool climate Shiraz always has. And you might think, well, okay, the Eden Valley isn't that much cooler than the Barossa, but it is. And 15 was a cooler year, 2015. So we're talking about an altitude here of, 150, 200 more than 200 meters altitude. It's quite cool there, and the wines do have this spicy character. Let's have a taste. Fabulous wine. Beautiful elegance to it. It's not a big wine. It's a full-bodied wine, but it's not a powerhouse. It's not like a Barossa Valley floor wine, such as you might find from Tanunda or Nuriotpur or out at Marananga or up north at Ebenezer. This is a different style of wine altogether. Beautiful, beautiful complexity to the wine. Lovely silky texture to it. Great flow from the beginning to the end. It's just perfectly even. It doesn't have any ups and downs to it. Just a absolutely rewarding drink. I could drink that till the cows come home. It's not oaky. I think they have aged that in in French oak, which not all of them were new, not all the barrels were new. And I think that it's not over-extracted during the fermentation. They have a particularly gentle fermentation in large open tanks, concrete tanks, which are wax-lined and which have heading down boards. This gives you a very gentle style of red wine. Beautiful. We rated it very highly. We gave it 98 points out of 100. So that is a very, very high score. I think it's only 1 point lower than the Hill of Grace of the same year. When you consider that it's quite a bit cheaper than the Hill of Grace, it's very good value for money. This wine will last for a long time. And improve as it ages. We've scored it 98, and it ranked number 3 out of 29 Shirazes from the Eden Valley from that vintage. So that's a very high ranking. The drinking window we've suggested was 2019, which was last year when it was tasted, through to 2035. That's only another 15 years. It will do that in a heartbeat, not a problem. It's going to be aging a lot longer than that if you cellar it well and you look after it. It's got a screw cap on it which will keep it fresh. Gorgeous wine now at 5.5 years, but it will drink for a long, long time into the future. And for a food match, we asked the winemakers to recommend what they would like to serve it with. And Stephen Henschke, the chief winemaker and proprietor, has said Mayura signature rib eye. With that, he would serve smoked potato puree, mushrooms, beans, cherry tomatoes, and furikake, whatever that is. I have no idea what that is, but he is the head chef from the tasting room at Mayura Station. So please enjoy this wonderful Mount Edelstone.